Please stand and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Martha, will you please call roll?
Davis.
Here.
Laura.
Here.
Inman.
Here.
Crane. Here. Quinn.
Here.
Rothrock.
Here.
Schlossmacher.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome everybody, residents and guests, to our council meeting. There will be various opportunities to address council during this evening. If you are here to speak on a specific agenda item, please hold your comments until that agenda item comes up, and then raise your hand so I can recognize you and have you come forward. If you are here to address council on something other than what's on an agenda item, there is an opportunity on item number 5 for public comments, so wait for that, please. We do have a revised agenda for tonight's meeting. We added 9B, new business, approval of de-annexation terms, and we also added names to the appointments that you would previously have a placeholder. So I would entertain a motion for our revised agenda.
Mayor, I move the City Council approve the October 16, 2019 City Council meeting agenda as revised.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call for the roll.
Schlossmacher.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Rothrock.
Aye.
Inman.
Aye.
Crane.
Aye.
Laura.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Item 1A is a public hearing for the Roeland Park de-annexation. We actually have 2 hearings this evening. The first one, Ms. Smith, will you please give us an update?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I think as everyone's aware, since December of 2018, the cities of Mission and Roeland Park have been in conversation about the potential benefits of annexation and de-annexation of a parcel of property that's about 7/10 of an acre at the northeast corner of Johnson Drive and Roe Boulevard. This is former K.S.A. right-of-way that was purchased by the city of Roeland Park several years ago in order to help round out a potential site for development in their community. But the city limit boundaries currently sort of bisect the site or cross through the site, and that piece of ground is actually in the city of Mission, Kansas. Earlier this year, the city of Roeland Park began negotiations with a developer for redevelopment of that property. And as we looked at and considered primarily kind of the bureaucracy and the red tape of asking a developer to go through zoning approval processes in 2 cities for a particular project, we sort of re-engaged in our conversations about the potential benefits of that annexation and de-annexation. And earlier this month, our 2 cities agreed to proceed with the process, primarily for the benefit of the developer and that project. And the first step in that process was to pass a resolution calling a public hearing for this evening, giving people the opportunity to speak on either side in favor or against the potential de-annexation. Following the conclusion of the public hearing, the council will consider an ordinance that would exclude the property from our corporate boundaries. The city of Roeland Park would then also convene a special meeting this evening to potentially look at annexing that same piece of ground into their city. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. I would now open the hearing and entertain comments from the public. If you'd like to comment, please come forward to the lectern and state your name and city of residence for the record. Is anybody here to speak on the de-annexation? Yes, please come forward.
Hi, my name is James Hampton. I'm a resident of Kansas City, Missouri. I'm here with Maurer Law Firm, city attorneys for Roeland Park. The city apologizes that they can't be here. They have a meeting as well, as you know. So kind of like you heard, kind of the process going forward with the annexation and annexation. Pursuant to K.S.A. 12-504 and 505, the City Council for Mission has to make certain findings regarding the land. And I kind of wanted to talk about some of the specific findings that the City of Mission and your council needs to find. So first, that no private rights will be injured or endangered by the exclusion of land. That will not be the case. The City of Roeland Park is the only owner of record for this land. The public will suffer no loss or inconvenience by the exclusion. Again, the City of Roeland Park is the only owner. This will save a lot of time and a lot of money for both the City of Mission and Roeland Park moving forward with the development of the parcel of land. And also that justice requires that Roeland Park's petition for de-annexation be approved. Again, this land is being used to develop the project, and if the land remains in the city boundary of Mission, then the developer will have to go through 2 city planning commissions and 2 city councils. So we request that you grant our petition and that you pass the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak on the de-annexation? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. The next step and then is consideration of an ordinance excluding approximately 0.7 of an acre at the northeast corner of Johnson Drive and Roe Boulevard from Mission's corporate limits. I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move the City Council adopt an ordinance excluding certain lands from the City of Mission, Kansas in conformity with the provisions of K.S.A. 12-504 and K.S.A. 505 and all amendments thereto.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Mayor,
Yes.
if I might clarify, Mr. Hampton did reference those specific findings, and those are detailed in the ordinance that was included in your packet.
Seeing no discussion, I would call for the vote.
Davis.
Aye.
Schlesmacher.
Aye.
Flora.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Inman.
Aye.
Crane.
Aye.
Rothrock. Quinn.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
All right. Moving on to item 1B. It's a public hearing for 5399 Martway. I would now like to open our second hearing. This is the former Mission Bowl property. Pete Heaven, Mission's land use attorney, will begin by providing us with information on the purpose of this hearing tonight. Mr. Heaven.
Mayor and Council, under Chapter 510 of our code, the city enjoys the ability to regulate unsafe and dangerous structures, either by requiring that they be rehabilitated or removed. The Mission Bowl suffered a rather substantial fire in 2015, and it came to our attention that nothing has been done with that property, so we initiated the procedures under Chapter 510 and had an inspection of the property. Tonight, the purpose of this hearing is for you to gather facts from those who wish to speak and make a determination whether this building is unsafe or dangerous and requires either rehabilitation or removal. At the end of the hearing, the council will take this under advisement, and the staff will prepare suggested findings of fact based on what we hear tonight at the hearing, and you'll take this up at a later time through resolution, probably in a November meeting. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Jim Brown, who is our inspection official, who's taking a look at the property and is going to give you his report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. What I'll be speaking to is the actual inspection report that was done on the day of July the 8th, which brought us around to where we are today. Effective on that day, we were provided as staff escort into the building, access to the building by a former tenant of Mrs. O'Donnell. Provided access to both myself and the fire marshal so that we could do an investigation and determine whether or not this is indeed a dangerous structure. One of the roles of the building official is to evaluate these type of structures and make that determination whether it is or is not. We use specific criteria to reach that end, whereas it is basically the International Property Maintenance Code gives us the conditions the criteria outlines those for us. In this case, the 2012 International Property Maintenance Code. And it's specifically section 108.1.5. And there's 11 conditions included in that provides the guidelines that we use so that we can make these determinations. Out of those 11, there was 8 points that were to be discussed and investigated on this particular structure. And so in that investigation, it was determined that something else to know. Whenever we do these investigations, the Property Maintenance Code also has a provision that any structure or premises which has any or all the conditions or defects described in those 11 items shall be considered dangerous. So it's not may be considered dangerous, it shall be considered dangerous. So it's any or all, and keeping that in mind, it could be 1, it could be 4, it could be 5, it could be a combination of anything or all, which leads us down this path. In this case, any door, aisle, passageway, stairway, exit, or other means of egress that does not conform to the approved building or fire code of the jurisdiction related to the requirements for an existing building. Well, extensive damage was at the origin of the fire, which is located adjacent to the front entrance, thereby making the means of egress and impossible to traverse or utilize after the fire event, which occurred on April 3rd, 2015. Walking surface of any aisle, passageway, stairway, exit, or other means of egress so warped, worn, loose, torn, or otherwise unsafe does not provide safe and adequate means of egress. Again, the intensity of the fire was so intense that it damaged this area to the point where it's heavily damaged the means of egress to this particular structure. Any portion of a building, structure, or appurtenance that has been damaged by fire, earthquake, wind, flood, deterioration, neglect, abandonment, vandalism, or any other cause, to the extent it's likely to partially or collapse or become detached or dislodged. The fire damaged several areas of this structure. One area in particular of roof structures adjacent to the front entry is composed of what is commonly known as a worn SJ type trusses. So that's a roof support. So 4 of these are approximately 5 feet on the center, and they have the corrugated roof decking, which is a common component. And the exterior wall was damaged to the point that it regulated these to require temporary shoring to be put in place so it's not continue to sag or fail. There's several roof leaks existing. All the galvanized coating on the roof components have completely flaked off because of the extreme heat. It is bowed, it's caused a lot of deflection. Mold and mildew is present in several areas. Of course, roof leaks continue to exist. The building remains, for the most part, in the same condition it was after the fire event. It hasn't improved in any way, and it will continue to deteriorate due to weather events and other extremities. Any portion of a building or member of appurtenance or ornamentation to the exterior thereof, not sufficient strength or stability, or is not anchored, attached or fastened in place, be capable of resisting the natural or artificial load of 1 1/2 the original design value. This 1 1/2 times value is something that's typically done by engineering just to make sure that you have a safety factor over and beyond what is required for any structure. Front wall of this building is incapable of supporting specifically the roof components that I spoke about, and it again required a temporary shoring, so it's no way it can hold even its own weight, much less that would be required 1 1/2 times what the nominal load should be. If the building or structure, any portion thereof, is unsafe for its use and occupancy, Well, due to the extensive fire event, firefighting efforts, temporary shoring, evidence of damage, instability of the front wall support the roof structure, all utilities are disconnected. All of these items clearly demonstrate the building is unsafe for its intended use and occupancy. The building or structure is neglected, damaged, dilapidated, unsecured, abandoned, etc. Becomes a harbor for criminals, immoral persons, or enables persons to resort to committing a nuisance or an unlawful act. The building, in essence, is abandoned. During our investigation, the fire marshal himself discovered that the front door was officially unlocked. Anyone could walk up to it, open the door, and enter the premises, and thereby leading to its enticement as an attractive nuisance, which could contribute to unauthorized activity, etc., unauthorized individuals occupying the space. The above listed conditions deemed detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of the city's residents existing, which constitutes a public nuisance, any building or structure because of lack of sufficient and proper fire-resistant rated construction, fire protection system, electrical system, fuel connections, etc., to be a threat, or is determined to be a threat to life and health. Again, all utilities have been shut off dating back to the fire event of April 3rd, 2015. There is no operating fire system, mechanical system, plumbing system, or any other system. Any portion of a building which remains on the site after demolition or destruction of a building or structure, so as to constitute such building or portion thereof as attractive nuisance or hazard to the public. Again, this building is basic, is completely vacant. Front door was discovered being open, unsecured. And it is by evidence of its present condition, ongoing condition, and continuing condition, it is evidence that this structure is indeed meets the criteria as stipulated in our code to deem it as being a dangerous structure. We have some photographs. We'll probably have to dim the lights considerably to see them somewhat clearly. The first photograph here is a view looking north toward the main entrance. The north wall damage to the extent it cannot support these imposed roof loads. Temporary shoring supporting the roof loads are in this area spanning the joist. Let's go back. The temporary shoring is right here. It consists of some 4x4s and other elements that help support these roof components, which span to the exterior wall here. And you see the opening where the fire had burnt through the roof system, creating openings in the roof. So the support member of this particular joist, of these, is virtually non-existent. So without the shoring, you're looking at a situation where that could possibly sag even more and cause a collapse. This view of the exterior load wall showing the flexion in the roof joist, and you can see the flexion meaning this. Not only is the galvanized roofing deflection, but other components of the roof system, which is what we commonly call bridging. Bridging is a component to put into these type of truss systems to stabilize and provide wind bracing, etc. for the truss. Basically, keep it in line, keep it straight, and they're not intended to move or alter in their condition without causing some significant strain onto the truss system itself. This photograph shows a little more clarity as to the exterior wall and the bearing points of the joist onto this wall system. When this burned away, there was so much deflection in the roof, not only did it peel away some of the exterior components, but it peeled away the structural integrity of those. So these are typically welded into one of this weld plate on top of that wall system. So if the wall system moves in any way, it's jeopardizes the integrity of that connection, and you're looking at a very dangerous situation. this view is basically at the origin of the fire. And the bag is actually called, here where a grease duct used to be. Grease duct serving the kitchen area. So this component was placed to help, I think, protect from weather elements and those kind of things. And it's continuing to leak because no other repairs have been done since 4+ years, whatever it may be. Another photograph showing a similar situation with the temporary tarp type plastic components in, try to control some of the weather events. This is a main component too, where this framing connects to the roof system, and there's significant charring or burning here to the point where the structural integrity is gone. Those components are gone. This beam is one of the most telltale signs of the damage and the heat transfer from the fire to the steel structure. When the fire hits the steel structure, the temperatures are so extreme, it causes steel to warp. So you see that. The bridging, as you remember I was speaking about bridging, look at the warp that's in this bridging component that's tying these trusses together. The heat was so intense that it started to bend and warp and move the steel components. It also warped this heavy beam that's a main structural component of the whole building. And it was also noticed, this wasn't something that occurred during the fire, but during the investigation it was noticed that where this arrow is pointing, there's a column, this column, there was a support column here at some point in time. The bolt connection's there, the holes are there, and that column is gone. And now it's not something that happened during the fire, but it is something that raises concern to me. Because now, this column is in place, and this distance has just increased. So was it designed for that particular use? This is already warped through the fire event, so it's causing even more stresses and strain onto the structure. Again, you can see the roof components warping severely. And that is continuous, especially toward the front of the building. This is ongoing because that was basically the origin of the fire, where the most intense fire was, the heat of the fire. And you can see evidence of just how intense this fire was. For those fighting this fire, one can only imagine how intense it was for them as well, trying to control this with a heat transfer of thousands of degrees, which it had to be to cause these kind of conditions. Again, you'll see it repeated over and over. Now, everywhere you see this, keep in mind too that the roof itself is on top of this metal decking. And it's screwed and connected to by various components to that metal decking. And when this fails and it separates, the acts of nature continue to do its damage to this particular building. You can see in several locations the theme keeps repeating itself as the damage that we saw provided us evidence to reach this conclusion. There was the front door. As we said, it was open, it was not secure, it was not locked, so anyone could have walked into this building at any time. Do keep in mind though, the fire marshal himself locked this door as we departed, just to provide another layer of security, which wasn't present at the time. This is the back room, storage room. These doors are secure to prevent anyone from entering from the back side. There's an example of the electrical panel. For the panel and the components that you see here, either that was done after the fact, or someone trying to remove elements out of that panel, theft, whatever the case may be, or it would be frightful to know that the panel was in that kind of condition before we ever had the fire event. Another area of storage in the back, and you see all kind of exposed wiring components, again leading to this being a dangerous structure, whether it was related to the fire or not. This particular window has a screwdriver stuck into the latch of the window itself to kind of provide some kind of security for somebody opening the window from the outside and getting entry into the building. In the back, this is a storage shed, typical storage shed. It's in the rear of this building to the south, adjacent to where the wastewater treatment facility is. And there's evidence of cots, bedding, pallets, if you will. Someone using it at some point in time as a place of refuge, I suppose. Again, in this part of it, there was evidence of that as well. People probably spending the night, whatever the case is, gaining access to what used to be the putt putt area. So with all of these items and all of this that we presented this evening, this is the very reason we declare this as a dangerous structure. We feel confident we have enough evidence to support that as we go forward in this process. That concludes what I have this evening for presentation. Thank you.
What have we done to secure that building so that people aren't going in there?
The building right now, we secured that front door, and the rear doors are secure.
The shed.
As far as the shed, last time I checked on the shed was, I believe it was last Thursday, and that door appeared to be closed and had a padlock on it at the time. Now, who did that, I don't know. The city didn't take that action.
All right, I would now like to entertain comments from members of the public. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes, and comments are to be addressed to council. So if you have some comments, please come forward to the lectern, state your name, city of residence, and sign in, please.
Good evening. My name is Mike Baumberger. I am attorney for National Catastrophe Restoration, Inc., or NCRI as they're referred to. They have a substantial lien, mechanics lien on the property of about $900,000. Before I start, I'd like to give you each a free reminder. I come bearing gifts. Let's put it that way. As you know, the fire started on the property April 3rd of 2015. It started in the kitchen area. It did considerable damage in the kitchen area, and my client was actually contacted that day to go ahead and provide various remediation and restoration services on the property. If you look at Exhibit 1, that's actually the contract between my client and Mission Recreation, Inc., which is the entity that operates the bowling alley. They're also the tenant on the property. If you look at Exhibits 2 and 3, you'll see photographs of what was going on at the time of the fire. You'll see where the fire department has busted out front windows. They even went ahead and put some holes in the roof to make sure the fire was out. Then you'll see a few photos to kind of give you a flavor of what the insides look like immediately after the fire. So that should cover most of what's in Exhibits 2 and 3. Now, before my client actually went inside and did any work, they had a structural engineer come out to make sure the building was safe for its employees to go ahead and work in there. And if you look at Exhibit 4, it's a letter from John Credwig of Credwig Structural Engineers. The next to last paragraph, it says, in my professional opinion, the existing building structural framing is structurally sound to allow access and occupancy during the cleaning, restoration, and repair work phase of this project. So we've got some front-end notification that the premises are structurally sound. And then if you look through some of the exhibits 6, 7, and 8, you'll see that considerable work was actually done on the premises. You'll see in exhibit 5, you'll see where there's a lot of plywood put up around the doors and windows on the front. You'll see in exhibit 6 where the lanes have been cleaned, covered with cardboard. You'll see that there's pin setters in the back. You basically see that the building's been gutted from all its materials. There was a lot of wet insulation, ceiling tiles, carpet, and all the contents were cleaned out of the building. It was then the efforts were made to dry the premises out. If you look at exhibit 7, you can see that the pin setters have been covered with plastic. The lanes look to be in pretty good shape. You see ball return mechanisms are still in there. And what they did is they had to go in with dry ice blasting, and that basically removes all the soot, and then they go back in with a sealer, and that's where you can see the walls and the ceiling trusses, roof trusses are all white from that sealer. So there was considerable work done in there. To the extent anybody represents that no work was done in there, there was considerable work, and in fact, our mechanics lien is exhibit number 8, which is about $900,000. That lien actually attaches to both the leasehold interest in the property, which is Mission Recreation as the leasehold tenant, and it also attaches to the fee simple interest of the owner of the property, which is Mission Mart Shopping Center, Inc. And there's a ruling, which is exhibit number 9 from the District Court of Johnson County, that basically fleshes that out. And I've noted there's a little bit of an index, if you want to call it that, at the very beginning of your binders, and it's actually got the paragraph numbers from exhibit 9 that would point out the fact that there is an agency relationship between those two parties, and that served as the basis for the lien attaching to both the leasehold and the fee simple interest in the property. My client did all the restoration and remediation services in the first couple of months, and they ultimately were not selected to be the phase 2 contractor that would go in and do the rebuild. They did an estimate, and it would cost about $228,000 to put the building back to the way it was. That's attached as Exhibit 10. Now, obviously, there's been litigation going on since basically 2015 regarding this property. I've actually been out to the property twice for inspections. Once was in February 17th of 2017, so a little over 2.5 years ago. At that point in time, we couldn't get access without keys. We had to have the owner and their attorney show up to let us in. And if you look at Exhibit 12, it'll give you some pictures. You can see the front entryway. The door is still accessible. There's just plywood beside one of the panels. And you still see that there's still tarping over part of the roof. That was the kitchen area. If you scroll to the second page, you'll see a second entryway. Third page also. Fourth page, you see where there's still plywood up, covering all the windows that were busted out from the fire department's suppression efforts. A couple of pictures of the condition of the golf course at that time. When you go through and you'll see some other photos again of the condition of the interior. One thing you'll notice is there's no longer any pin setters in the building, and they've started to remove some of the select panels from the lanes. And you get back to probably about the 10th or so page in, and you'll see a little bit different picture that shows that there is a pit underneath the lanes. It's probably about 18 inches deep, and it spans the width of all these lanes. And I'll come back to why that might be an issue for you down the road. Giving you a few more pictures of what the condition of the building is. There's actually another door on, I believe it's the west side. And where there was cardboard covering all these lanes. You'll now see cardboard is kind of strewn around, and I think that was probably removed from the lanes at the time they removed the pin centers in June of 2016. The last inspection we did was in July of this year, about 2 weeks after the inspection that was just discussed. At the time that we came in for the inspection, the doors were locked, we couldn't gain access, and the owner of the property actually had to go back home and get the correct keys, and we had to wait about 15 or 20 minutes so we could gain access to the building. So it was locked up and secured at that point in time. And if you look through the pictures, it just gives you a little bit better flavor of what's going on now. You can see that some of the plywood that covered up the windows before has gradually deteriorated and fallen off. You can see the back door entryway. You can see a picture of the little shed that was discussed earlier. When I looked at that shed, I didn't see that there was any notable signs of access to it. You can see that there's some pretty high vegetation around it. So if there was some access in the past, it didn't look like it was apparent from a recent standpoint. There's a picture of the gate and the locking mechanism, the gate to the back of the golf course area. Some photographs of the golf course area. And again, some other photos from the interior that shows additional lane panels have been removed, and you'll see at the very end some of the mechanisms or locks that are in place to keep the back door secured. So that gives you a little bit of a flavor of the condition of the property. I wanted to discuss a little bit about the report itself, a couple of the concerns I'd like to address with the report, and also talk about a couple of options. First, when it comes to item number 1 of the July 8, 2019 dangerous structures inspection, it's represented in item 1 that damage located adjacent to the front entrance eliminates all points of safe entry and exit. There's actually 5 different doors to the property. There's an entryway through the golf course. There's an entryway right next to where the golf course building was added on. There's the front doors. There's another entryway or ingress-egress on the west side of the building, and there's at least one on the back of the property. And so there is ingress and egress, and as he pointed out, if the door was actually open at the time that he went for the inspection, and the front door is a means of ingress and egress at this point. And that's also that's brought up again in item number 2, so I basically address it the same way. With regards to the fire damaging several areas of the structure, I would point back to the structural engineer report I pointed out, which was Exhibit 4. And after that structural engineer came out on April 6th and said you're good to go, my client was prohibited from doing any work in the kitchen area for about 4 weeks because that area was cordoned off while fire investigators and insurance investigators were doing their investigation. And it wasn't until about May 1st that they were given the green light to go ahead and do the demolition of that area. And I would think if it was truly a dangerous structure, they wouldn't have been given the green light to go forward and demo it at that point in time. I believe in the action item summary from August 7th, 2019, it was noted that the city received numerous complaints. I don't know who those complaints have come from or how numerous they've been. We haven't seen anything presented, at least tonight, on that. When it comes to the August 7th of 2019 minutes of the Commission Community Development, that would be the minutes of the Mission Community Development Committee, there was a reference on page 3 that Council Member Schlossmacher, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, asked if there was any objections to the demolition that had been raised with the city, and Ms. Smith stated that the restoration company has, but it was denied by the court. I don't know what that's in reference to. There's been no action in the court where we've been denied of any objection. There was a motion by the city in the bankruptcy case where they basically wanted an order stating that they could have the automatic stay lifted in the bankruptcy case, or that it didn't apply. NCRI, my client objected to it because there was language in the order that was what we deemed to be inappropriate and objectionable, and we weren't given proper notice. Bankruptcy judge ended up ruling in our favor that that particular order should be vacated and actually ordered that it be resubmitted by agreement of the parties. So I just wanted to point that out. And I've already addressed the fact that there was considerable work, so to the extent that there's been any representation that there was no work since the fire was covered. My last point would really be the options. I know I've taken up more time than I've probably been allotted, but it seems to me you have a couple of options. One, you can do some repair work on the building, and the other option is to demo the building. If you're going to do some repair work, it seems to me you can go in and replace some locks, or have a locksmith go in and replace some locks. You could have somebody come in and put some plywood up over the windows that are busted out when the plywood is gradually deteriorated away. You could have some boards put over that back shed. If there's concern about people entering the property, if you look back, I think it was exhibit number 11, I pointed out there was 3 different photographs from when a general contractor had been hired to go through with phase 2, and they had actually put some fencing up, some chain link fencing up around the front of the building. So that might be an option if you're concerned about people being able to get into the building. But I think some of those options seem a lot less expensive than demolition, which I would guess may be in excess of 6 figures. And if you do go down the route of demolition, there's probably concerns about asbestos removal, because I know there were asbestos tiles in the building, and you're getting into the whole cost of removing all the interior contents, destroying or demolition of the building, and you've got to haul everything away. When it's all said and done, you're going to be left with this big pit in the middle of the parking lot. It's 18 inches deep. So are you going to end up with situations where people drive through that parking lot at night and drive into a big pit? Are you going to have snow in the parking lot where people can't see the pit? What are you going to do to fill that in? Is there going to be people walking through that parking lot, or kids going to think it's an attractive nuisance where it's now a skateboard park? So I think you've got concerns there. And it seems to me that the temporary repairs might be the most prudent measure. NCRI is in the process of actually starting some negotiations with the other parties in the lawsuit, so it may make sense to see if there's any traction with resolution between the parties before you do take any action. And I think if you get into the situation where you increase the liens on the property because you've spent a lot of money on the demolition, that may have an impact on whether or not the property can be easily sold, whether that money can be used to pay liens or whatnot. So, those are my comments.
Can I ask a question? You mentioned the last time you were there, you were able to lock the front door on your way out. When was that? When were you there?
The last time I was there was July 25th of this year, and we showed up, the attorney for the tenant, Mission Recreation Inc., showed up along with one of the owners. They weren't able to get us access to the building immediately because they brought the wrong keys. So they had to leave, go home, get the correct keys, and they came back 15 or 20 minutes later. So I'm just pointing out to you that it is locked up and they have some keys to it. So it's not a free-for-all inside.
That was keys to the front door?
Right. The doors, if I recall correctly, there were keys to the front door.
So July 25th was after the other inspection.
A couple weeks.
Yeah.
When was the last time that your client actually did any work on that site? When did they complete their part of it?
My client's work was completed in early June of 2015, and then they were locked off the premises of June 11th, 2015.
So 4.5 years.
It's been a while.
So you said you most recently inspected in July 2018. You raised a couple of issues potentially with findings in the report from city staff.
Right.
But did you have a position on the overall finding that whether it was unsafe in 2015, it's now unsafe today?
Well, I think my question question would be, and it's totally up to you what you guys want to do with the property. Obviously, it's within your dangerous structures powers. I'm just pointing out that there's cost associated with that, how that could affect any kind of resolution between the parties, whether it's going to be easy to sell the property down the road. And our concern, at least one of our concerns, is we don't want findings that are adverse to our case, because one of the issues in our lawsuit is whether or not our work actually improved the property. And we took issue with the idea that there's pleadings out there stating it's a dangerous structure, or that it's a public health and safety risk. If there's language in there without any actual evidence or findings, we were taking issue with that because we were concerned that somehow a party in the case would turn around and use that as some kind of basis to say you didn't improve the property. So that makes, it's probably more than you want to know.
Are you able to speak at all to the water damage that was done to the property after, my understanding is there was a tarp that wasn't secured properly maybe? Or?
Initially there was a tarp that was put over the kitchen area. And then in 2015, there was a serious amount of rainfall in the city, as you all probably remember, excessive amounts of rain. And we ended up, NCRI put an extra tarp over the top of it. They were prohibited from doing anything beyond the tarping because of the fire and insurance investigations. And by the time that it was released to go back to NCRI to do any further work, then they were basically notified that they were being, I'll say terminated, but basically their role was going to be limited going forward, and the roof repair was not one of their roles.
You mentioned that the city filed a petition with the bankruptcy court.
Yes.
To move ahead with the process of declaring this a dangerous structure. I thought you said that the bankruptcy court ruled in your favor and it was not granted. Is that?
The motion, I will call it kind of a motion or a comfort motion, because under the dangerous structures powers in the bankruptcy code, there are exceptions that would allow the city to go forward without getting any order from the bankruptcy court. So the motion that was filed was basically seeking a comfort order just to say, hey judge, we're checking off all our boxes here to make sure we can go forward and it's all good. But we took issue with the fact that there was language in the order and there was no evidence that had been presented to support that, and we were not given proper notice in advance of that. So we ended up filing a motion to set the order aside, because there was a motion and an order was filed simultaneously. The order was basically a stipulated order between Mission Recreation, who's the tenant, and the city. But since we have a lien in the property, we should have been notified in advance. So that's where we took issue. The court basically said, yes, we're going to set aside the order, the stipulated agreed order between the city and Mission Recreation, and now the parties need to get together and put together an agreed order that they can come to an agreement on, and then that was what was filed.
And that was approved by the court?
Right.
Okay.
Question? If I could.
Well, RC, did I?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I apologize.
So you said that NCRI secured a second tarp but couldn't get back to the area of the kitchen. But earlier you said that that was only a 4-week span of time and that you guys were granted access May 1st. Could you guys, I guess that it was just contradicting to me. But
Go ahead.
you also said that on both of your inspection dates, you couldn't get into the building without keys and that the owner at one time had to go back and grab a different set. But who's to say that, even with pictures, the windows and everything are open, that people can get in outside of those being open?
Okay, so 2 questions. First one, my client was on-site contracted with Mission Recreation on the same day as the fire, April 3rd. And we were able to put a tarp on top of the roof pretty early on. And then I believe it was April 12th or so, after a rainstorm came through, there was approval for a second tarp by the insurance company. So a second tarp was put over the top of it around April 17th. That's all over the kitchen area, which was the cause and origin area. And NCRI was not permitted either by fire department or the insurance company of doing anything more. And then that part of the property, that kitchen area, was finally released from its inspections and investigations about April 30th. And so NCRI was given the green light that they could go ahead and clean out or demo out the kitchen area as of that time frame. But I think it was May 4th is the date that they were actually told that they would only be doing limited work going forward, and the roof was not one of the tasks that they would be doing. So that was the first question. Second question went to the idea that somebody could get in through the windows. The windows are pretty high up, so I don't know how anybody would access them. It'd be like a vagrant coming along with a ladder, which doesn't seem very likely to me. Because they're way up towards the top high of the roof. And I've seen no signs of anybody trying to live in the building itself. The only evidence of somebody potentially trying to reside on the property was evidence that the prior gentleman discussed, and that was based upon that back shed behind the room.
One thing I heard you mention was that 2 or 3 of the parties are considering opening negotiations again. Is that the owner, yourselves, and the tenant? Or?
We've reached out for discussions with the owner of the property. So
just between you and the owner?
And I think that his goal was to go ahead and reach out to the tenant and see where we can go with negotiations.
What are your hopes? What do you want to see from those negotiations?
It would be, I don't know that I could say a whole lot on that topic other than in the grand scheme of things, it would be great if the parties could come together on some kind of number that would resolve the differences.
That would be great.
Trust me, it's been going on, a lawsuit's been going on since 2015, so.
I have one other question. Do you have a position on the lien priority? I was just curious on your view on that, and whether that might be having an impact on your repair versus condemn or tear down.
It's my understanding that the city's lien would take priority over our lien. But ultimately, the question is, you're going to go ahead and foreclose on that lien, and is somebody going to be able to come along and wipe out all the liens at one time?
Pete, have you heard about all this?
Oh, yes.
Okay, I want to make sure.
Can you give us the chronology again of the order to set aside, when that was?
The motion, as I recall it, I don't want to step on anybody's feet here, but the motion to, let me see, I think I've got a copy of it, so I'll rattle off the title. There was, on June 6th, which this is about a month before the actual inspection occurred, there was an unopposed motion to determine automatic stay pursuant to 11 U.S.C. 362 does not apply, or alternatively modification of the automatic stay. So basically, the city of Mission was seeking an order of the court basically saying either the automatic stay provisions don't apply or we should be granted stay relief. And that's what we took issue with. The order that was basically, let's see how it's phrased, stipulated and agreed order was between the city of Mission and Mission Recreation, who's the debtor in the bankruptcy case. And we filed a motion to set aside the order after the fact, and I think it was granted probably sometime around July 10th, I think. So it was after that that the new agreed order came into play, where NCRI's counsel was working with the city's counsel to make sure that the new order would be agreeable to everybody.
So that's in place now.
Right.
All right, let's see if anybody else has comments they want to make on this issue. Does anybody else want to come and speak on this issue? Yes.
5706 Lamar. There's an old saying that once something is done, quite often it can't be undone. And it sounds like you tear the building down, you're going to add a lot of cost to the property, which may preclude a sale. And as you go over to the Metcalf Crossing area in Roeland Park, you'll see that they did put a chain link fence around that dangerous building to keep people out of it. So it looks like there would be alternative approaches to secure the property until such time as it can be worked out, and hopefully a sale and a rehab of the building, which has been a great asset to Nation. It was empty ground before the Mission Boat was built. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak on this? All right, seeing none, then the public hearing to show cause why the structure at 5399 Martway Street should not be condemned and ordered repaired or demolished as an unsafe structure is closed. The next step then in this process is for council to direct staff to draft a resolution to adopt the findings of fact regarding the structure. That resolution then would be considered at our November 18th City Council meeting. I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that staff be directed to prepare a resolution to adopt the findings of fact regarding the structure at 5399 Martway Street for consideration at the November 18th, 2019 City Council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on this motion. Seeing none, I will call for the vote.
Flora,
Aye.
Quinn,
Aye.
Inman. Aye. Crane.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Schlossmacher.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Rothrock.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, moving on to item number 2, special presentations. We have one special presentation this evening. This is a presentation from Commissioner Becky Fast, and she will provide an update from the Johnson County Commission. Welcome, Commissioner Fast.
Thank you. I know you have a full agenda, so I really appreciate taking a few minutes out. The county really wants to have a close relationship with its elected bodies, so thank you again for allowing me to present. Am I not doing it right? Oh, wait. There, I got it. So when your residents receive their tax assessment, often they think the Johnson County, all that money goes to the county. And they don't look because it's from Johnson County's in charge of collecting all the taxes and then distributing. But the county does have 3 different mill levies. We have a mill levy for libraries, parks, and the county. And as you see, really, our schools are over 50% of our property tax bill. So one of the things I hear often is, where does my money go to with the county? The county has an over $1 billion budget. We're second to the state of Kansas. But majority of your county mill levy money and county sales tax goes to your sewer waste system. It goes to public safety, the courts, medical management, the ambulance. So issues related to public services and public safety, then roads, stormwater. But we pull out about 26% for our reserves to have a AAA bond rating so the county can borrow money very cheaply. The revenues, it shows where the different revenues that come in. So this year we have a number of major projects. If you go to downtown Olathe, the courthouse is now up. We're hoping it will be completed next summer, and then the next step will be tearing down the old courthouse and working on what will be where the old courthouse is. This year we completed Meadowbrook in Prairie Village, which is constantly full in the evenings. We're also working on the medical examiner building. We were shipping out our autopsies, and that was costing a lot of money, so we will now have autopsies done in the county. Also, the Lenexa Library was completed this summer, and beginning with the library now in Merriam. And a feasibility study is working with City of Prairie Village on the Corinth Library. So one of the programs, 2 of the programs that we work a lot with local cities is the CARS program and then this stormwater program. The CARS program is from a county mill levy. And so as you can see, about 0.343 mils goes to the CARS program, and then 50% cities put forth, and we match that. Unfortunately, in the next 2 years, a lot of the CARS money is going to 35 because Kansas Department of Transportation did not have the money to match the federal money. And so when you're on 35 now, it's beginning to be a mess even during the middle of the day. So that will be widened at 75th because cars come together at 75th. They merge, and so that'll be widening that. And so a large portion of the CARS money will be going to that 35 project. This year, as you see, Mission received one of the CARS funds. Most of the time, there is enough available resources for each of the CARS projects, but a lot of cities are not able to put forth that 50% match. So on the stormwater management, that is changing from a watershed program because water has no boundaries. We have started planning with Kansas City, Missouri. Our water goes to Kansas City, Missouri. And you receive a lot of the water from Turkey Creek, Marion. And so this whole area, the boundaries, one city's water flows into another. And so they're changing to the watershed program. In past years, there was a lot of conflict. One city could stop another city from receiving that stormwater funding. In past years, there was conflict between Roeland Park, Fairway, Mission, Marion, over each other's water. And we're hoping that this new watershed, it's a pilot, wanting to hear from you, will provide more equity, but also one of the key parts on it, I think, will be more funding actually for the Northeast area because our infrastructure is aging. We have the oldest infrastructure, we have clay pipes, so we're the highest need for flood mitigation, for public safety. So with that watershed benefit areas, I think actually our area, and I know you had a project that did get funded. I talked to our program staff. I think it was a very worthy project, but there is really, the reality, not enough funds for this program. So right now we have a sales tax that goes to it. We're actually one of the only counties in the state that have it. I hear often from other counties, how did you get that special sales tax through? I believe, I voted that I think there should be some additional dollars going to that because we're having increased rain events. I have some commissioners who voted against this program, so there is a diverse opinion on this program. I think it's a very critical program given our increased rain and rain events. So over 97% of the funding was allocated to flood damage. We allocated $18 million this year to the program. And so as you see, Mission is not on there. This is the cities in my northeast area. So each city has a representative on this committee, and they have a very complicated scoring system. I'm still trying to figure that out. Is your public works director on it, or are you on? I mean, I feel like I need a day's training to understand the scoring. And as you see, Prairie Village, Leewood, but I think it will be very different in the next few years with the watershed program. And Lee come, he can come and give you really, from our stormwater program, a very detailed presentation on the program. And I think it would be important for you to hear. I just heard him at Prairie Village when I spoke there. So wastewater management, a large part of our $1 billion budget goes to waste management. Kansas City, Missouri right now is really in a hard way. Their bills have tripled in the last years. So when our county, we're very fortunate, we have separate rainwater pipes and we have separate waste management pipes. Well, in Kansas City, Missouri, their pipes are together, so when they have a significant rain event, often their waste goes into their stormwater pipes. Hence, if you probably have heard of the term Flush Creek. And so they have an EPA consent decree. They're working through having to build more pipes because that goes in our rivers. All of us get water out of the rivers. And so Johnson County was sending our waste over to Kansas City, Missouri, and for the same price of building that Tomahawk, in 20 years we will pay for it versus sending our waste over to Kansas City, Missouri. And so right now that should be done in 2021. That's right, off of Lee Boulevard in Mission. It was also in a floodplain, so it was a lot of problems too, so it needed to be reworked, and with all our population increase here. So the next is the Nelson Wastewater Treatment Plant. That's here in Mission. And so that is the next project. That is the oldest wastewater treatment in the county. When that was built in the late 40s, we saw all this development coming to Mission, Roeland Park, Prairie Village. Development follows wastewater. We see that in our unincorporated areas. As soon as the county agrees to have the wastewater lines, development occurs, and that's what happened in Northeast. And so they are not going to be shutting down the whole Nelson, which would really impact us up in the Northeast. They're going to be moving it around from one side of the plant to another. Right now is the hazardous chemical drop-off that we have, which is very popular. That will be moving, and the county will be developing a new hazardous chemical drop-off. I've been pushing that is also a drop-off for organic food waste. Would be really easy, people dropping both, but I have to convince some of my fellow commissioners on that one. And so you'll be losing your community garden in time, but hopefully that will come back after the construction is there. So solid waste management, I was so inspired talking to your sustainability committee. You have the best sustainability committee. You should be very proud, just the passion and the commitment. So I serve as a liaison to the Solid Waste Management Committee. Councilor Krang is on that committee. We just passed a 5-year plan. The last 5-year plan it dictated that you had to separate out your trees, your limbs, your leaves into separate bags, and that has really helped our landfill. There was a lot of pushback in the beginning, but now people just naturally separate it out, and then it gets mulched at the landfill. We are working, our landfill is, possibly to fill up in 23 years, so we're really working on diverting waste. So if you look at where is our waste, it is from our commercial sector. It is our multifamily housing. It is our developments, our restaurants. And so one of the things I brought up to your sustainability committee is the county working with you, because you have a lot of multifamily apartments. And so our multifamily are licensed under commercial, and so the county's going to be beginning to license commercial haulers to try to encourage them to start recycling, because majority of our waste is now really from our commercial sector, because our residents have been doing so well reducing our waste. I will say, when I went to tour the recycling center, people are standing and they hand pick through the recycling. And that's what recyclers are doing, because the contamination rate is so low. And the stuff that people threw in their recycling, we all have more education to do. I couldn't believe lobster claws. I was like, was there a sale at Hy-Vee? Cantaloupe, clothes, and I think people mean well. But I think we really need to, all of us together, simplify that recycling message. So we're, next week we have a forum on aging. Our county is rapidly aging. Your city led the way in community for all ages. I'm pushing for Johnson County to be a community for all ages, but we're not there yet. But we are beginning the planning and how do we meet the growing aging population. Mental health. The mental health needs in our county and our cities have skyrocketed. Thank you to the City of Mission for having a co-responder. Each of our cities do now. We're seeing more and more crisis needs from within the community, within our schools. Our suicide rate has doubled in recent years among our youth. And so this year we added on 6 different positions, but we're still 65 positions down from all the budget cuts from the state over the last year. So we're, with increasing need, we're still not where we were 10 years ago. And so you can see our jail population is going up, and 40% in our jails are due to mental health needs and substance abuse needs. So how do we provide those services through co-responders, through county, we're now looking at having brief assessment case managers before someone goes into the jail. Our Johnson County Mental Health previously was not in our jails. We had a private contractor. One of the things I really pushed is that we have a seamless transition with our Johnson County Mental Health before they go into the jail, once they're in the jail, and helping them out of the jail. Because there's high recidivism for people with mental illness who end up in our jail. And so if you look at these fees, so those are what cities pay. You as City of Mission, when you have an individual who ends up in the county jail, you pay $35 a day. Sheriff Hayden has gone to your county manager, your city manager, each of the cities, and asked to raise that to $50 a day because of the growing population, and they haven't raised that in 20 years. Mental health services is actually less than $50. So when we help people and resolve the crisis in their home, you save money. The county pays $157 to house an inmate. And so mental health makes sense by helping people, with supportive services. So one of the things that we're dealing with in the county and that we'll be working with the cities is the dark store appraisal challenge. We often hear about Walmart, but we don't hear about where all these others are, and they have all appealed based on the dark store theory. And so there's a lot of cases still pending. What appraisers have told us at the county is that they haven't been trained in the dark store theory. That isn't an acceptable appraiser theory that they go to school, that they get certified on. And so across the country, this is not just in Johnson County, appraisers are looking at learning how this hypothetical lease theory, understanding it. Some states, the Supreme Court has overruled it in the state. Indiana has legislation to not allow it. So there's states and the state legislatures are saying this is not an accepted appraiser practice. Kansas, our legislature hasn't talked about it because it's really kind of come out in the last year. Johnson County, we are appealing these cases. Also, Governor Kelly has, next year, we'll have 2 appointments. So the Board of Tax Appeals could totally change over, and they might not subscribe to the dark store theory, or they could continue the dark store theory. So we will kind of see what happens with that. So if you look, cities lose about 13 million. County loses 13 million. No one's talking about how much our schools lose, our state loses. So together, and that's just a hypothesis. I know your city manager has they've been sending different options to the cities, and it changes all the time. And so I know the appraiser's office is really asking the cities to look through, and I know the city of Prairie Village found some of the ones that our appraiser thought we'd lose. They were actually nursing facilities. They weren't, commercial. The fear that Chairman Eilert has is that this will go from a commercial big box to small businesses, that it has kind of that ripple effect to other commercial properties. One of the things that this last year the county and many cities were dealing with was a decrease in sales. The good news is this last month, I just talked to our budget director, the sales tax went up in September, and it went like 9% up. So we are actually on a county basis where we were last year. So even though we were down at the end of August, and he said that all the cities in my district were up in September. So I don't know where you are totally, but he said you did come up in September. So I don't know where you are a year, but that is good news. And I think one of the things that we at our county budget office is working with the Kansas Department of Revenue is the internet use tax. Where is it being applied? Is it being applied uniformly? Our budget staff doesn't think it is, that there's sales tax that's not being collected there. And that's one reason they felt like we were down. And so that is going to be one of the ongoing challenges too. So I know you have a lot on your agenda, so I just wanted to kind of highlight some of the major areas of the county wanting to work with you if you have any questions.
Mayor?
Yes,
I have one
Sally.
question. Just returning to your point about a large portion of the CARS funding being diverted to the I-35 project, was there, and this might have predated your time, but was there any sort of environmental impact analysis done by the commission in deciding to expand I-35?
Yeah, that was kind of before me. I think,
Do you know if anything is done?
I don't think there was. I will say the one part I told the committee that I'm really excited about is that with our, part of our solid waste management plan, we're going to have incentives for cities through the CARS funding to use recycled asphalt and recycled cement, that there's a recycling end to our roads. A lot of that ends up in the landfill, so I will be interested to see how that works out. But yeah, I don't think there was actually.
More just a comment, I just want to thank you for your energies and focus on mental health and affordable housing in Johnson County. I know you've been putting a lot of effort towards that, and you will definitely hopefully feel some of that ripple effect in Mission.
And thank you for City of Mission for signing on to the study, the research that we're doing. You were very much a leader with the first-tier suburbs and helped that grant come in that we had in July. You know, Kristen, the mayor, that was a great conference, and I really hope that there's some good market data in there, and really that it's useful for your planning in the future.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 3, issuance of notes and bonds. We do not have any this evening, so we are now at consent agenda. Our consent agenda has 5 items on it tonight, and our council committees met on October 2nd and October 9th, and we fully discussed each of these items. The committee agreed that the items listed on our consent agenda are routine enough to be considered under a single motion. Several other items considered by the committees on those evenings will be presented under committee reports later on the agenda tonight. If a committee member or member of the public would like an item removed from the consent agenda, now would be the time to make that request. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Mayor, I move the City Council adopt the consent agenda as printed, items 4A through 4E.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, please call for the vote.
Inman. Aye. Laura.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Crane.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
Rothrock. Aye. Schlesmacher.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to item 5, public comments. This is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on items that are not on the agenda. If you would like to comment, please come forward and state your name and the city of residence. Is there anybody who would like to come forward? Could I have you just wait 1 second, please?
Absolutely.
Lambert, would you like to come up, please? Come on up. You probably got to go home with the baby here.
Yeah.
So can you tell us your name and what city you live in, please?
So, my name is Matthew O'Brien, and so what was the question again?
The city that you live in?
Oh yeah, and I live in Mission.
Okay, and you were the grand marshal for the recent Sunflower Parade, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And Lambert shared with me when I introduced myself to him that he had an issue he wanted council to hear about. So, would you tell us what you'd like to hear about, please?
Yes, thank you. So I would like to talk about vaping and how I think it should be a law. I think it should be a law because enough people have died and been sick, even sent to the hospital because of the electric smokers. It's not okay to have them. It might be we might love it, but it really is bad, and we shouldn't do it anymore. So that's why I'm here to say I want to make electronic smoking against the law.
Okay. And how old are you, Lambert?
I am almost 6.
Okay. And what school do you go to?
I go to Ruston Elementary.
All right. Thank you, Lambert.
my name is Holly Groman, and I'm a resident of Mission. I live in Millhaven. And I'm here to call attention to the ongoing situation at 6604 Dearborn. I know several of the council members are aware of the situation there. There is a home at 6604 Dearborn. Grant Oshman is the resident at that home. There's some recent events that I want to call attention to that have created extenuating circumstances even to what the council may or may not be aware of. The home is truly an eyesore to the neighborhood. It's the resident there has, aside from running several businesses out of his home, one of which is some sort of a car dealership, causing multiple vehicles to be at and around this residence at all times of the day and night. It's also become quite a sideshow with all of the multiple flags, tents, umbrellas. There's an unfenced pool on the property. We've been told that the pool has no water in it, but I still feel like it's a liability. Having a pool that anybody could get in or out of, whether it's a child or an animal, and if it rains outside, there's going to be water in that pool. The most recent event was Mr. Oshman was actually arrested on September 30th, and he is currently being held. He doesn't have a court appearance until September 18th. All of the vehicles that are on the property, my bad, I'm sorry, it is October 18th. All of the vehicles that are on his property currently are without license plates now. So I don't know what happened with that, and I'm not sure of what there. I know there's some ongoing legal issues with his car sales business, but the vehicles have not been moved now for more than 2 weeks. There was actually one vehicle, a large limousine, that was on the street, and it was towed after several days. But there's another limousine that's been covered with a tarp. There's windows down on it. I mean, it's a hazard, I believe, for animals and for people, kids or whatever. I mean, it's going to be inviting trouble for sure. The flags and tents and umbrellas are all now falling down, and it's really created a situation where I'm the president of the Homeowners Association. I'm getting calls, and every time I'm out in the neighborhood, I'm getting stopped by residents who want to know what's going on with it and what can be done about it. I looked up today, there's several ordinances that are being disregarded by this resident, and you know, what exactly can we do? What is the plan of action, and what can we do to improve the situation there and make sure Mr. Oshman becomes a neighbor again? And if he's able to, I don't even know, but I don't know if he's coming back or not. I was also made aware by one of the residents that there's a small dog that lives within his residence, and the dog is currently being kenneled all the time except for when his business partner comes over to feed the dog and let the dog out. And neighbors of Mr. Oshman's residence claim that there haven't been people there for days. So I don't know the welfare of this dog, and I have a neighbor that's extremely concerned and who's called me many times. She wants to foster the dog. She wants to find some way. I mean, I went so far as to call the Mission Police to see what could be done. Of course, they can't break into somebody's house to rescue a dog, but gosh, I wish they could. I feel so badly for this animal that's being kept in this house. So I just want to call it to the council's attention. If we can please get some sort of a plan and let the residents of Millhaven know that there's something that's going to be resolved with this, if there's any way possible. I would appreciate your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have public comment?
Anybody else?
Good evening. I'll keep it short. I'll keep it at 30, 35 minutes. I wouldn't do that. So, my name is Kevin Fullerton. This is Kathy Fullerton and Sandy Russell. We're 3 of the 8 people who put on the Mission Sunflower Festival for the 3rd time just last weekend. And we're here because we want to thank you and the city for all the great work you did for us. This is put on by the Mission Business Partnership. And the whole point of us having this is as a way for the businesses to celebrate Mission and its great people. And then also for people to come downtown and discover the shops we have downtown. That's really a big part of our goal. We could not do this without all of you, without the great staff that you have sitting over here. For example, we have Emily, who's been our great contact throughout the whole thing. We have Laura and Penn, who were helping with the parade. Of course, Public Works, and where's Brent? Brent right there, who I don't know how many times I said thank you and I owe you for life to him on Saturday. You can collect anytime you like. But also the Parks and Recreation Department, and of course the Police Department, who kept us safe and who stopped the car that was going the wrong way during the parade, down right by the parade. Thank you, Captain Sell, for stopping that car. Also the Fire Department, and of course you, the City Council, for being in the parade. Most of you were volunteers afterwards, and you've all been very supportive of what we've been trying to do with the Sunflower Festival. So we just wanted to take this time to thank you and the incredible staff of the City of Mission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Work together.
Anybody else would like to make a public comment?
Mayor, if I might,
Yes.
I think would like to take an opportunity just to respond briefly as we can to the comments that were raised about the property in Mill Haven. We certainly understand and have been cognizant of and involved with this property for quite some time. We do have, Mr. Oshman has been cited by the city. Currently he has a court date of October 23rd in our municipal court at 9 a.m. Is that correct, Mr.
Correct.
Gordon? He, as you mentioned, he is currently being detained in the Johnson County Detention Facility. He has a hearing there on October 18th. The trial on October 23rd will address vehicles, the pool, some of the tents, the umbrella structures are a little bit more difficult, and the operation of the business. So those are all things that have been included in the municipal citations up to this point.
Great.
We are aware of the vehicles that have had license plates removed, and I believe we are currently pursuing additional citations related to those. We are unable initially to remove those unlicensed vehicles from his property. The one that was on the street that had the license removed is in violation of our ordinance being on a public street, and that's why you saw that vehicle being towed away. So we will have to, that is a second round of municipal citations that will have to go through our process as well. And as I think as you referenced, just this week we have been involved in conversations surrounding the animal that may be in the structure. And to the extent that we can address that, we've asked the neighbors when they see someone arrive on the property to please call the police department so that we may be able to go over and see if we can gain access to check on the welfare of that animal. So that is where we are
And it's my
now.
understanding Mr. Oshman was also contacted about the animal, is that correct? So that he could make other arrangements? So
Yes, we've been in contact with him about that concern.
Great.
what I would say is, we're aware of it, we don't like it. We're doing everything we can under the ordinances we have and the process that we need to follow. One of the things that staff is doing is they are working on reviewing the ordinances in that case and see where we can strengthen them. Because when you build ordinances, you can't anticipate every situation. And this is a situation we would like to fix, but right now we don't have the teeth to do that. We have to follow the processes. So we're aware of it. I think the police routinely go by, issue citations, is what we can do. So we're aware of everything you said. Nothing's been a surprise. We are doing everything we can, and we're trying to remedy it.
Glad to know that, but Laura, is regarding the animal, at what point, if there's a lag between someone coming to the house and the police not being called, at what point do and can we take action?
Might look to the chief. Do you want to address that one? You spent the most time on it this week, so.
So, Mr. Oshman has somebody that he relayed to us that's taking care of the dog. I haven't seen the dog. It's a little too non-Yorkie. Yeah, very small. We've told the neighbors if they see anybody on the property to call us. We're glad to go up and talk to anybody. We have been on the property. We cannot physically go into the house. There's a difference between a dog and a kid as well. So Mr. Oshman's assured us that somebody else is taking care of the dog. He doesn't want to see something happen to his dog. Is it there? I don't know. But he has assured us that somebody has been there. Told all the neighbors, if anybody sees anybody up there, you call us right away, even if it's 911, that's fine. We will go up and make contact. They do not have to let us in the house. So they don't have to show us the dog if they don't want to.
Okay.
So, but again, as the mayor and Laura said, trust me, we're doing everything that we can to get this fixed. So,
Thank you.
yeah, and if you see something, please call.
Sure. That's pretty
All right, any other public comments?
I just have one question for follow-up related to that. I just want to make sure, and especially in light of the chief's comments, that on our list of ordinance review, I know I've talked about making some improvements to our animal cruelty ordinance in general. And so when we're working through those, I just would make sure we're looking at this type of situation as well. And is there anything we can improve on that front for the future?
Thank you. All right, seeing no more public comments, we'll move on to item 6, Planning Commission action items. We don't have any this evening, so we'll move on to item 7, committee reports. Councilmember Flora, will you please provide a report on the Finance and Administration Committee?
The Finance and Administration Committee met on October 2nd and October 9th and considered a total of 7 items, including approval of the meeting minutes. 2 items were considered on tonight's consent agenda, and action on the de-annexation of property was taken earlier this evening following a public hearing on the issue. We have 3 remaining items from the Finance and Administration Committee for consideration tonight. Our first item is award of the contract for solid waste collection services. The current contract with Waste Management for residential solid waste collection services will expire December 31st of this year. Staff solicited bids for a new residential solid waste collection services agreement, and 3 bids were received. The request for bids was structured to include the services currently being provided, which includes polycarts, solid waste, recyclables, and yard waste collection, and monthly bulky item pickup. Customer service was emphasized in the process. Staff is recommending approval of a contract with WCA Missouri LLC as the best and lowest bid. Residents currently pay $203.64 annually for this service, and the new contract with WCA will lower the price slightly to $192.54 annually. The proposed contract with WCA is for a period of 5 years with 2 optional renewal terms of 5 years. Mayor, I move the City Council approve an agreement with WCA Missouri LLC for residential solid waste collection services for a period of 5 years with 2 optional renewal terms of 5 years each.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Hillary?
Although I plan on voting in support of this because the price is right, I would have liked to have seen the Sustainability Commission be a part of the selection process, especially considering the length of the term. 5 years is a long time, and this kind of contract, which is rather large, I would have liked to have seen the Sustainability have some insight on this.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, please call for the vote.
Flora?
Aye.
Inman? Aye. Crane?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
Rothrock?
Aye.
Schlesmacher?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Thomas?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, our next item is a resolution calling a public hearing on the division of the Rock Creek Redevelopment TIF District. The Rock Creek TIF District was established in 2006 and contains approximately 71 acres of property, which generally follows the Rock Creek floodplain from Roe to Lamar. The district originally included 4 redevelopment areas, but was amended in 2009 to include a total of 5 redevelopment areas. Project Area 2A was added to separate the Capital Federal project. Because the TIF Act provides that increment is commuted on a district-wide basis, all areas must be generating positive increment before any funds may be distributed. Currently, the overall Rock Creek TIF District is generating a negative increment. As we have worked to amend the Gateway Redevelopment Agreement and consider the issuance of special obligation bonds for the project, it was determined that the current Rock Creek TIF District should be split into separate districts. To accomplish this, the city will provide the same notice and hearing as was required when the original district was established. This proposed resolution sets the date and time of a public hearing regarding the division of the Rock Creek redevelopment district into separate redevelopment districts. The public hearing will be held at the City Council meeting on Monday, November 18th, 2019 at 7 p.m. Mayor, I move the City Council adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Mission, Kansas, establishing the date and time of a public hearing regarding the division of the Rock Creek Development District into 5 redevelopment districts. The public hearing will be held on Monday, November 18th, 2019 at 7 p.m.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, please call for the vote.
Davis.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
Rothrock.
Aye.
Inman.
Aye.
Flora.
Aye.
Crane.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Schlossmacher.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, this is the last one you have to hear from me on. Resolution approving amendment to third amendment, amended and restated redevelopment agreement, the Gateway Project. In October 2017, the council approved the third amended and restated redevelopment agreement for the Mission Gateway Project. Now, as a result of the project's evolution over the past 2 years, the city and its consultant team have negotiated a proposed first amendment to the 2017 agreement. This amendment serves a crucial role in reconciling the current project to the 2017 agreement. In 2017, the project was contemplated to be built in phases, but with the schedule for the project now being driven primarily by the synergy component and the need to complete the parking structure sooner in the process, an updated agreement is required. This proposed amendment aligns the underlying goals and assumptions included in the 2017 redevelopment agreement with the realities of the 2019 project. Mayor, I move the City Council adopt a resolution of the City of Mission, Kansas, approving the First Amendment to the Third Amended and Restated Redevelopment Agreement for the Mission Gateway Project.
Second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I didn't know if the developer is here tonight. Does he want to make any updates or comments? Because we get a lot of questions about the Gateway Project. I thought it might be a nice opportunity for Mr. Roeland to address the council and development.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Pleased to be here. We're moving forward, thank God. It's been a long process, but your staff has been outstanding. Your consultants have been outstanding. We have a great relationship and a plan that I think is going to see fruition very soon. We continue construction. The Synergy building is moving forward. They will probably start going vertical. You'll see precast walls going up probably the first week of December. We just concluded the Johnson County waste water treatment pipes, and so all that is done. It's moving forward. It's coming together, and we're very pleased. And, many of you have been here for quite some time, and I appreciate your patience and especially your cooperation. I'm happy to answer any questions that I might be able to handle. Thank you very much.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, please call for the vote.
Thomas.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Schlossmacher.
Aye.
Rothrock.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
Crane.
Aye.
Inman.
Aye.
Flora.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Moving on to the Community Development Committee. Councilmember Thomas, will you please provide us a report?
Thank you, Mayor. The Community Development Committee also met on October 2nd and discussed 5 items. These included approval of the committee minutes and 2 public presentations, a season review of the Mission Summer Camp and the Mission Family Aquatic Center, and a season review of the Mission Market. 2 action items from the committee were approved on tonight's consent agenda. There are no other items for consideration tonight.
Nothing?
Nada.
You have nothing?
Nada.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item 8, unfinished business. We do not have any unfinished business. So we'll move on to new business, item 9. We do have 2 new business items for tonight on our agenda. The first is a change in dates for the November and December City Council meetings. I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that the city council move the regularly scheduled November city council meeting to Monday, November 18th, 2019 at 7 p.m. and move the regularly scheduled December city council committee meetings to the Wednesday, December the 11th at 6:30 p.m.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call for the vote.
Davis.
Aye.
Schleschmacher. Rothrock. Quinn.
Aye.
Laura.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Inman.
Aye.
Crane.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, council members Flora and Inman have been working with two designated council people from the city of Roeland Park in an effort to negotiate acceptable financial terms for the de-annexation of that 0.7 acres and resolve the outstanding remaining issues. Council members, would you please provide us a report?
Sure. Would you like a report first or in connection with the motion? Give a brief update of our
We went ahead and spoke with them today, Aaron Thompson and Jim Kelly over at Roeland Park. They're members of the city council over there. And kind of what we looked at was taking into consideration what we would get on that parcel for stormwater as well as just the property taxes. And we kind of looked at it from a position where which that equated to approximately $3,400 a year, $3,492. And we kind of looked at it at a 20-year position because that's generally what we would do on a TIF project. And so we kind of started looking at originally, and plus some benefits that they were going to get as to not having to have their developer come to our city council, planning commission, etc. And we kind of started out at a ballpark about $85,000 with the taxes, stormwater, and plus some benefits. And they kind of wanted to negotiate a little bit on that time frame. They were okay with the numbers in regards to the taxes and stormwater. So with that, we wanted 20 years. They wanted approximately 15. We got to about 18. And then we kind of settled in on a range. So our range at this point is $62,856 to $69,840. So they agreed to that, so they will be taking that to their council on Monday, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, the regularly scheduled council meeting, next meeting is next Monday. They called a special meeting tonight on the ordinance question, and so that was restricted in the subject matter scope, so they wouldn't be able to talk about this tonight, is my understanding. So they're planning to talk about it at their next Monday's meeting, but we both thought, it would be better to get our councils to agree in principle and then get it resolved from there. We can get an agreement on that range that has been narrowed from a $10,000 to $125,000 range to the $62,856 to $69,840 range now.
All right, let's have a motion and then we'll have discussion.
Mayor, I move the city council authorize the mayor and city administrator to complete the remaining steps necessary to finalize an agreement with the city of Roeland Park for compensation associated with the de-annexation of a parcel of land at the northeast corner of Johnson Drive and Rowe Boulevard, and to allocate cost sharing 50-50 for the traffic signal owned by K.S.A. at this intersection, as long as the Roeland Park City Council approves compensation in an amount within the following range: $62,856 to $69,840.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Who seconded that? I'm sorry. Ken, thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Nick.
Why the range?
So we had a lunch meeting today, and that was as close as we were able to get at this meeting, but we both felt that that was a small enough distance at this point that we could go ahead and take it back to our councils and make sure our councils were on board before we tried to pinpoint it down precisely. It was sort of a time negotiation issue.
So we're going to come back with a pinpointed number? Would it be possible to amend this to specify a specific number?
Well, I think the idea is that we're asking for council to authorize approval of anything that would fall within this range, so that we and Laura and the mayor
But
move
would it
forward.
be possible to amend this to specify a number?
Of course it's possible.
flexibility, given that it's already only a $7,000 range, but
So who's gonna decide on a $7,000 range? If we approve this.
Our two negotiators, Sally and Kristen, will go back to the Roeland Park Council counterparts, and they will finish the negotiations.
so we would say,
So
we
the
would
question
send an
is-
authorization, and they will check with their council on Monday and see if they have authorization within this range. And then assuming everyone's on board, we'll try to get to that exact number.
Okay. And then you have, as long as it falls within that range, you don't have to come
We don't have
back
to
here.
come back, yep.
Correct, that's exactly correct.
And in conversations, there wasn't an ability just to find a middle ground between these two numbers? 'Cause that's probably
We
how it will
tried
shake out.
that, so we had actually narrowed, we had some discussions before in person meeting today and had narrowed the range to $50,000 to $85,000 from the original $10,000 to $125,000 split, just to try to make our conversations more productive today. 67,500, I believe, is the midpoint between those two, and given that that number falls within this range, we tried to get it done today for that number, but we just weren't quite there.
Mayor, I would like to move to amend this to accept no less than the amount of $65,555.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, so I guess discussion,
Can you please say that amount again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, to
65.
accept no less than $65,555, which is almost in the middle of that range.
Okay.
A lot of fives.
It's a lot of
All
money.
right, so we have a motion and a second, discussion on Schlossmacher's motion. Yes, Ken?
I would argue against that amendment. I believe that we have a process in place that's going on that basically, well, I know I can say no on it, but I'm giving my justification for why I'm going to say no on it. I believe that this range allows negotiation to take place in good faith, and I think we trust the process rather than try to limit it at this point in time.
Well, what I would say is I think if we go back with this range, we're not going to get anything more than $62,856, so maybe someone else would like to make another amendment to have that amount be the amount. I don't care. I think having not having a single number to go back with just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
If I may, Mayor, your amendment says no less than that 65,500. So it can still, there's still a range there up to the 69,840. You're leaving that in there, right? You just change the range from 65,555 to 69,840.
Right.
So there's still a range for the negotiation.
I understand, I'm just.
We're not trying to take,
I
they're negotiating.
I just believe that we should honor the process of our two council members that went forward to do this. And the recommendation that they're making to this council, I think we should honor it.
Well, I have full faith that we're not going to get a dollar more than the lowest number in that range. So maybe we just need to have somebody else amend it to be that number if that's where we want to go.
We appreciate your confidence.
Well,
Could we maybe hear a little bit more from our two representatives on the size of the range and or why maybe, limiting this scope would, not potentially happen?
Yeah, one of the things that they talked about was some of the costs that they have incurred in regards to the marketing of the lot or the property, including surveys, engineering costs. They had a quick claim deed with K.S.A, the title, attorney fees, all that good stuff. And I understand, that they're getting, a good chunk of change for the sales price of the property, but there are some, costs that they've also had to do. We did get the 50/50, if this De-Annexation goes through on the street light, which that is also an additional savings of $15,000 a year for taxpayers, and I think that's, something that we need to, appreciate within this negotiation as well.
And also, the only other item I would add in terms of, narrowing it beyond the agreement that we reached today is that they have to take this back to their council on Monday and get their agreement to the range. We're talking about a couple $1,000. This gives them the flexibility to go back to their council and say, this is what we determined, this is what we landed on in our negotiations thus far.
I would say when you put a price tag of something you can buy from us in between $62,856 up to $69,840, when you put that price tag on it, they're going to want to get the $62,856 price. I'm just trying to simplify that. Like, let's land on a number and just say, here we go. The number I picked is kind of right in the middle of that range. I don't care if they're lower. I think we'd be better off having just a number to return back. That's my main motion.
It's going to come down to a number here.
Right.
Do we vote on the amendment first?
We vote on the amended motion. Any more discussion?
I would just ask that you go forth with the comments that have been acquired here tonight with the higher end and from our perspective. I would like to see the higher end as well. I can leave it with the range, but I would like to see the higher end, and I don't want to go back 3 or 4 meetings and have to do that again, but I appreciate what you did.
All right, let's have a vote on Nick's amendment for 65,555.
Thomas.
Nay.
Rothrock.
Aye.
Flora.
Nay.
Davis.
Nay.
Inman.
Nay.
Crane.
Nay.
Schlossmacher.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
Motion fails.
All right, so we are back to the original motion. Any more discussion on the original motion? Seeing none, please call.
I just wanted to say thank you for the work you did. This does pull us in between the dollars that they had initially offered and the ones that we had to come up with. I believe that, we're quibbling over a minor issue at this point in time. If they accept this and you can negotiate a final price, I think we're satisfied with this outcome. So thank you.
True. All right.
Yeah, and I hope that Roeland Park will, have the same faith in their negotiating team and will make a similar motion on their Monday night meeting.
All right, please call for the vote.
Quinn.
I want to say aye.
Thank you. Rothrock.
Aye.
Crane.
Aye.
Inman.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Flora.
Aye.
Schlossmacher.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, we are on to item 10, comments from City Council. This is an opportunity for comments from our City Council members. Does anybody have anything they would like to say? Kristen?
Yes, we have a Ward 3 meeting tomorrow night at 7 at the community center. I know the Chiefs are on, so.
Wear your
We'll be
red.
watched it.
Hillary?
Also, I want to let you know that we have a first-tier suburbs meeting, as Commissioner Fast alluded to. We'll be unpacking some data from our summit back in July, so can't wait to get some of that data. But Friday at 8 o'clock at Matt Ross Community Center in Overland Park.
Hillary?
We have our Ward 1 meeting at Sylvester Powell Community Center on October 30th at 6:30. It will be Councilmember Quinn's last Ward 1 meeting. I know he's so upset about it. He was planning on not showing up, but I just enticed him to.
I'm going to have a proxy there.
There you go. There you go. Feel free to join
All
us.
right, Sally?
Yeah, I just real quick want to note that Ken and Kristen and I each attended pieces of the League of Kansas Municipalities Conference over the weekend and on Monday. And in the interest of time, I will just say if anyone would like to hear more about that or items we might be bringing back from that conference, feel free to get in touch with any of us.
Pat?
Just a quick comment. Just wanted to point out that it was just a coincidence that when Commissioner Becky Fast was speaking and she was talking about the community for the aged and the mental health issues, that she was staring directly at me. Just a coincidence.
Sorry.
I just want to let you know, on Tuesday the 22nd, Solly and I will be attending a 3.5-hour sustainability retreat. We will come back with information on their goals and objectives for the next year and how we can add to their goals and objectives.
Ken?
I just want to say another thank you to staff for all the work you did for the Sunflower Parade and helping us get into some great cars. And all the work that staff did in terms of public safety and the public works staff that helped coordinate the barriers and all that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for dragging cones and barriers on Saturday morning as well.
They weren't supposed to.
Marcy, did you have a?
Just a reminder, the Family Adoption Committee is hosting a pig roast on the 27th of this month from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Wellstone in Mission, and tickets are $25 a person. There's a silent auction, a lot of great things, and all of the proceeds go towards the Family Adoption Committee. And I was also approached by a few of my vegan and Jewish friends, and so I wanted to speak about, there's also going to be brisket served in addition to the pig, and we at this point don't have anything that's absolutely vegan friendly, so if you or someone you know could help out with that.
We are planning to expand our vegan options for this event, so I think we're heading that direction.
Okay.
Don't forget gluten-free.
Gluten-free.
Gotta keep up with my
More
dietary.
and flavor-free, it's already.
Oh, that.
And I am lactose.
All right, anybody else?
Oh. Well, and then, I'm sure I'm stealing some thunder, but tomorrow night at Johnny's Tip-A-Pop event for the Special Olympics, 5 to 8.
All right. All right. Moving on. Mayor's report. I first would say congratulations to the Sunflower Committee. It seemed to be a great event, and I think you've reached your ultimate goal. You moved it from August to October to get out of the heat, and I think you accomplished that really well done. Picked a great day. A little cool in the morning, but it turned out to be beautiful. So, can you give me a feel for year over year? How did this event compare to last? Is there more involvement? Is there more traffic? Just a quick observation.
First year we had perfect weather, so it was great. Last year was 105, so it went whoa, and we closed it early. This year, right back up to about what the first year was as far as number of people we saw during the day. Actually, this year the event went longer and people stayed for the whole event too.
Okay.
And I will also say that having the parade at 10 o'clock, we had more people lining the streets and enjoying the parade instead of 9 o'clock in the morning.
All right. Thank you. All right. Tonight we have several appointments to our commissions as well as our representative to the Drug and Alcoholism Council. I'll begin with the Drug and Alcoholism Council. I put before you the appointment of Leanna Riesinger, 44, as Missions Representative to the Drug and Alcoholism Council with a term expiring December 31st, 2022. Leanna was first appointed to this position in February of 2017 for her first term as our representative. She is now eligible for a second term, and the DAC Development Committee is supportive of her reappointment. She currently serves as the Vice Chair of the DAC and has been active on the Alcohol Tax Fund Grant Review Committee. Her background includes working with a variety of nonprofit organizations, including work in the areas of mental health, safety net care, and healthy communities. I would entertain a motion for her reappointment for a second 3-year term.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call for the vote.
Schlossmacher,
Aye.
Quinn,
Aye.
Rothrock,
Aye.
Thomas,
Aye.
Crane,
Aye.
Inman,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Flora.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. For our Parks, Recreation, and Tree Commission, I put before you the appointments of Ben Chosey, Ward 4, Mary Ryherd, Ward 4, and David Schwenk, Ward 3, for appointments to the Parks, Recreation, and Tree Commission with terms expiring December 31st, 2021. I would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I believe that Mary Ryherd is Ward 2, not
I'm
Ward
sorry.
4. That's,
Okay.
Just wanted to make mention that I appreciated having resumes. That was very helpful to just know a little bit of the background of each of those individuals. So if that can be done, even if it's done in a briefer format, however, it does help us understand what their background is. Who's being appointed. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, please call for the vote.
Crane,
Aye.
Thomas,
Aye.
Schlossmacher,
Aye.
Flora,
Aye.
Quinn,
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Rothrock.
Aye.
Inman.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, let's moving on to Sustainability Commission. I put before you the appointment of Kathy Boyer-Shechel, Ward 4, to the Sustainability Commission with a term expiring December 31st, 2020. I would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none, please call for the vote.
Flora.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Rothrock.
Aye.
Inman.
Aye.
Crane.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Schlossmacher.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, for our CIP committee, I put before you the appointment of Jackie Gamison to the CIP committee with a term expiring December 31st, 2020, and David Schwenk to the CIP committee with a term expiring December 31st, 2021. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none, please call for the vote.
Quinn.
Aye.
Rothrock.
Aye.
Crane.
Aye.
Inman.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Flora.
Aye.
Schlossmacher.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
All right, moving on to item 12, City Administrator's Report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, thank you for those appointments. We're anxious to get our committees almost back up to full speed. We do have, excuse me, just a few remaining vacancies. On our CIP committee, we have a Ward 1 vacancy, and it is ward specific. So if anyone is aware of a Ward 1 resident who would be interested in that.
I think that there's one that's retiring from the council that might be available.
Are you quitting?
Anyway, so we do have that. We will still have one vacancy on the PRT. It could be either non-resident, any ward, or the youth, or a youth member. And then we have a youth position on the Sustainability Commission. So we're going to be working over, hopefully between now and the end of the year, to get everything back to kind of full speed ahead.
If I could add on to that, I've had several questions about the process on appointments, and so far we have not been overwhelmed with resumes. So, you know, we make a call whenever we have vacancies. Our committees have rules by which they can be filled, as far as if it's ward specific or not. We make a call several times a year. Whenever we encounter someone who says, hey, I'd like to get involved, we say, send your resume, we'll put it on file. And then when it comes time, when vacancies appear, when the time comes, we pull those resumes out, we call them, we do a quick interview, we see what their interest is, where they want to serve, and then we try to match up. And again, we've not had a huge influx of people. You know, it seems like we just get just barely enough, and then we're, like I say, we're still a couple short. So that is kind of the process. It's not, I mean, we're always looking for more people to, if they want to volunteer to join our committees.
The only other thing, oh, sorry.
I'm just saying, Mayor, at our meetings for Ward 1, she always brings that up and talks to people, tries to encourage them, but it is tough to get them to move.
Well, now we have a candidate.
The only other thing I have is, I think Commissioner Fast referenced the housing inventory. We talked a little bit about that earlier this evening. The proposals are in. The Mayor and Brian serving on the review committee for that, and I think we will be meeting next Monday to review the proposals and advance a recommendation to get that process kicked off. So,
Remind us what the committee's goal is.
to conduct a county-wide housing inventory, update one that was done, I believe, back in 2004.
All right. That concludes your report?
Yes, thank you.
All right, moving on to item 13, executive session. We do not have a need for an executive session, so I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.